If you've been interested in trying the 2D shoot-'em-up genre, 2001's Progear is a pretty good place to dip your toe in. Not because it's any less brutal than the average bullet hell shooter, but because even if you're biting the dust over and over again here, the beautiful visuals and creative world will make it irresistible to keep pushing on. The steampunk battlefields of this game are rendered in a beautiful pixel art style that flex on you hard within the first few dense seconds, with some quick but effective storytelling. Your plane takes off from a burning hangar as kids cheer you on, explosions going off all around you, a city under invasion. The hangar is coming down, this must be the last plane we have to fend off the invasion. And almost immediately after it blasts away, the action begins. Damn. When games were games. Tricked out blimps, flying fortresses, and towering mechs await you, all with this charming, anachronistic, old industrial style. A group of pompous aristocrats with names as hoity-toity as Blossom Pench control the battlefield, and to the extent that the only ones who remain now to oppose them are a determined group of youngsters in tiny biplanes. Biplanes that, with their simple designs, are gonna look all the more impressive, taking down mechanical monstrosities. At its core, Progear has it where it counts for a shmup. That extreme glass cannon type gameplay where 10 seconds in you're firing satisfying, insane, stage-clearing waves of bullets that will abruptly stop if one of the hundreds of thousands of blue dots coming your way touch you. It's good that despite all the visual complexity, those blue dots stick out as well as they do, minimizing frustration in the challenge presented. Here you have two forms of attack to keep things interesting. A basic rapid shot and a missile barrage that can hone in on enemies, but will also slow down your movement speed. Homing attacks of course can come in handy when threats from behind are inbound, but also that slower movement speed is no bad tool when weaving in and out of some of the denser bullet patterns. Patterns that, whether be slow, fast, dense, or spread out, remain varied and creative enough to not let the 5 stages here get repetitive. Switching back and forth between the shot types already gives basic play a little more strategy, but it also ties into the scoring system. Use the basic shot to defeat enemies and bullets around them will be converted into rings. Do the same with the homing shots and they'll turn into jewels, both adding to your score. However, the high value jewels will only appear after a sustained period of collecting just rings without switching over to collect jewels. So you'll have to think wisely about when to switch back to maximize score. And whether you live or die by score in these kind of games, this is just incredibly satisfying to do. Saving up on the rings and then switching over to trigger a jewel shower and absorbing a screen's worth of wealth as it dings into your plane is awesome. There's also, of course, screen-clearing bombs to collect, but using them will drain your score, something else to consider. There's some good depth to the design here, and if anything, I'm oversimplifying how the scoring system works. But once again, at its core, the game just feels incredibly good to play. Fast, smooth, and crunchy in all the right places. Combine that with the visual detail and said visuals variety, and it's hard to not get sucked in. Marine bases, underground steelworks, mountain strongholds, a sunset-drenched forest. The game packs in a lot in its short length. Music is not exactly jig-worthy, but remains suitably intense, and even though they only show up for a few seconds, the portraits of the bosses and their little quotes give the game an added touch of personality. I'd argue the last 2 stages probably crank the difficulty up maybe a bit too extremely. I feel like the game hits a nice balance in the middle that is intense yet fair, that it maybe could have remained at a little longer. It's also good that, outside of just the fun of the game, to encourage you to hone your skills here, there's unlockable boss waves to find if you play with good enough performance. I really liked the score challenge mode the release from a couple years back had, that locked you into 1 credit and turned off the cheats. So if you wanted a pure experience, you could block out the noise of all the extra features that usually tempt you when trying to find ways to play arcade games at home. These games are also best played with an arcade stick for precise bullet hell dodging movements. So if you've taken the plunge and bought one of those recently for some modern fighting game, this is also a good way to get the most out of it. I don't think you'll be disappointed.